The laceless football boots seem to be pretty controversial among both brands and players. But one company that's been really trying to make laceless boots work is Adidas. And right here, we've got their latest top of the line F50 Laceless model that's gonna retail for $260. Now, these are a pretty cool pair of football boots, and I definitely think they're gonna work well for some players, but they're definitely not gonna be for everyone. So in this video, I'm gonna cover who these would be a good fit for, and also talk about some alternatives that you might wanna consider. As always, if you wanna check these out or any of the other boots we discuss in this video, you can find links to them on sale with discounts in the description below. So let's break these boots down, starting with the design. So first things first, if you know anything about the F50 series from Adidas, you know these are gonna be extremely thin and lightweight. That's one of the first things I noticed when I got them out of the box. And in my standard size 10.5 US, these came in at 198 grams. And for those curious, that actually puts them at the exact same weight as the New Balance Furon V8, making these pretty much two of the lightest boots on the market. Then the Fiber Touch upper on these is very pliable, but it's structured enough to the point where it doesn't feel too flimsy. And then I also really like that throughout the toe box and the sides of the boots, you get this really nice webbed coating that gives a nice amount of texture. And then of course, one unique thing about the laceless version right here is that it's going to have a one-piece upper and no traditional tongue running through the center. And instead of that typical tongue, you're gonna get this pretty stretchy prime knit collar that runs through the center of the boots and around the ankle. Beyond that, you're gonna get a pair of removable insoles, and then you're also gonna get Adidas's typical soft cushioned pillows at the back of the heel area. Now, looking at the underside of these boots, I got these in the FG variation, which is going to be standard. You're going to get a combination of both half moon shaped studs as well as sharper bladed studs towards the top of the toe box. And because of the slightly more aggressive nature of the studs towards the heel and the ones at the front of the boots, I would definitely recommend these for use on firm ground natural grass primarily, although I did get to test them out for a little bit on artificial grass. But thankfully, for those of you who do play on artificial grass most of the time, Adidas does sell a laceless version of the F50 with their AG sole plate, which is going to be a lot less aggressive and more suitable for those synthetic surfaces. And then in terms of the tooling and flexibility of the sole plate itself, this is definitely going to be one of the more rigid sole plates in Adidas's lineup. You're not going to get any bend towards the midfoot whatsoever, and even in the toe box, it's quite rigid, just giving you a little bit of spring. Personally, I like to have a little bit more of a moderate flex throughout the outsole of my football boots, but for those of you who do want a really responsive and reactive feel and like that rigidity, these are definitely going to deliver that. That's going to cover the main points as far as the design goes, so let's get into the fit and feel. Now, honestly, I may have hyped these up a little bit too much in my head when I first got them out of the box, because I truly do think these are amazing when it comes to looks, but when I first got them on feet, I thought the fit was just okay. And unfortunately, after trying these on, more and more, they started to just remind me of all the compromises that do come with a pair of laceless boots compared to a more traditional laced model. So let's start things off with sizing. I got these in my typical size 10.5 US, which by the way is the same size that worked for me in the standard lace version of the F50. And just walking around in these, they definitely felt pretty comfortable, but I could tell that I didn't really have that locked in sensation. And I think with this laceless model, the only way you're truly gonna get that secured feeling is if you do go around a half size down. But the problem with that for me is if I went a half size down in this pair of football boots, they would give me a slight performance advantage and I would feel more locked in towards the heel and ankle area, but the comfort would definitely suffer and my toes would probably feel crushed towards the end of the boots. Now, for those of you who like having an extremely tight feel from your boots and you often go a half size or a full size down, you might actually find these fit pretty well for you. Now, when it comes to the knit material running across the top of the foot here and around the ankle, Adidas clearly tried to go for something that was going to be pretty tight and keep your foot secured, but even though this is a pretty premium material and it does hug your foot pretty well, it's not going to give you the same security that you would get from a traditional lacing system. And that's one of the reasons these boots may feel like a compromise. And also, this is obvious, but I do have to point it out. Obviously, the fit is going to be less adjustable because you don't have any lacing system here. You're not going to be able to make the boots a little bit tighter towards the toe box or maybe a little bit wider towards the toe box. You're also not going to be able to get that added security around the midfoot or the ankle. Basically, however the boots feel as soon as you try them on for the first time, that's how they're gonna feel. And when a brand does decide to go in a laceless direction like this, you're basically completely relying on the shape of the sole plate and the volume of the upper in order to fit your foot properly. And if your foot doesn't perfectly align with the silhouette of these boots, then you're probably not going to get a great fit. Personally, my feet are on the wider side, and while I do like a lot of Adidas football boots, I do usually rely on that lacing system to give me a little bit more of an open feel. And maybe that's one of the reasons I also found these boots to feel a little bit claustrophobic on feet, just because I didn't have any of that adjustability. But I will caveat all of that by saying that if Adidas F50 models fit really well for you straight out of the box, if you do have a narrower foot shape, and if you're willing to size down a little bit, these actually might work really well for you. Next up, let's go over what they were like to play in. I want to start off by saying about these and laceless boots in general, there is something really cool just about putting on a pair of boots almost like a pair of socks and not having to tie any laces. Maybe it's just a novelty that wears off after a while, but I do think that's pretty cool and I did appreciate that with these. And another cool thing about these boots is that they do give you a really clean striking surface, and I think it does help slightly that you don't have any lacing system to worry about. It's just really clean when you're making contact with the ball. But beyond being easy to slip on and having a clean striking surface, that's kind of where the pros end. I thought these did feel just a little bit awkward to play in compared to the traditional laced model, and I couldn't help but notice the slight lack of security and lockdown that I would normally feel around the ankle area. And also the lack of adjustability that you have with these throughout the midfoot and toe box area did leave me with a couple different pressure points throughout my feet. And as I mentioned earlier, the only way I think you're really gonna get peak performance out of these boots is if you do size down. But if you do go down a half size or a full size, you may end up sacrificing some comfort, so you're gonna have to figure out whether or not that compromise would be worth it for you. Because with these boots, they need to be worn extremely close to your feet in order to get the best experience, and that's just not my personal preference. So if you do like really snug fitting boots, I could see you playing well in these, but if you're like me and you like at least a little bit of room at the front of your toes, these probably aren't gonna be the best option. And I do still think that the majority of players, probably around 80+%, will have a better experience going with a laced version. Next up, let's get into the value. The laceless version of the F50 Elite is gonna set you back $260. And that price tag is gonna pretty much put them on par with some of the most expensive boots on the entire market. Now, the only real way to defend this price point is that laceless boots are a pretty niche category and there aren't a whole lot of competitors out there to choose from, but at the same time, this is gonna be a pretty experimental boot that's not gonna work for a lot of players. Now, when it comes to the price tag, you can find takedown versions of the F50 Laceless. These are the Elites that are gonna retail for $260, but the Pro version that has a laceless model is gonna set you back about $150, and then the League version, which is $90, also has a laceless variation. Now, I haven't tried the laceless versions of the takedowns, but I will say that the laced variations of both the Pro and the League models are really good. So do with that information what you will. But with that being said, there are a couple other options you may want to consider when it comes to both value and performance. So let's get into the competitors. Now, when it comes to competitors to the laceless F50 model, there's really one boot that stands above all others, and it's going to be the New Balance Tequila V4. The Tequila is going to retail for just $215, and it is one of the only other high-profile laceless boots on the market. And I remember trying on the Tequilas a little over a year ago, and at the time, I claimed they were the best laceless football boot I had ever tried on, and I think that's still the case. I really do feel like the Tequila V4s are one of the only laceless boots that's been made that really feels like it can compete with its laced counterparts. First off, they have a more anatomical shape to the toe box that's going to be a better fit for most players. They also have a higher cut collar that just generally provides better lockdown and security. So with the Tequilas, you don't feel that same need to go a size down just to get a good fit. So obviously, based on your foot shape, your experience may vary with the two different boots, but if I was going to go down a laceless route, I would definitely recommend trying on the Tequilas if you have the chance. Another big bonus when it comes to the Tequila V4s is that you can also constantly find them on sale for less than $200. And then of course, the other obvious competition with this pair of boots is going to be its counterpart, the laced version of the F50 and also the F50 Messy. Now, both the standard version of the F50 and the F50 Messy are going to be two of the best speed boots that you can buy right now. They give you better lockdown, more adjustability with that lacing system, and they're also going to be a little bit more accommodating for players who have wider feet. So from both a comfort and a performance aspect, I do think most players are going to prefer the laced variation. What are my final thoughts? These are a truly beautiful pair of football boots. And if you love the F50 series and you like having a really snug pair of boots on your feet, these may actually work for you. And they have the added benefit of saving 30 seconds by not tying your shoes every time you put them on. But part of me feels if Adidas really wants to create an optimized version of a laceless football boot, they should take it away from the rest of the F50 series entirely and just focus on a specific individual laceless design, maybe with a different shape to the toe box. Because in my opinion, the laced variation of these boots is going to be superior in most aspects. But nevertheless, I still think laceless boots are a really cool concept, and I hope both Adidas, New Balance, and other brands continue to make them. And guys, that is going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever tried on these boots and what you think of them, and also let me know if you've tried on any laceless boots at all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.